you get when you take a fabulous dancer, somebody who's a true artist, and put her slap dab in the center of a cold calling floor? What will happen? Well, I can tell you what didn't happen. Wendy didn't flake out. Wendy thrived, succeeded, and now she is the cold calling queen. On today's episode, she's going to lay out to you her 3-step process, something that may relate to dance, but I guarantee you it will be making you dance on the way to the bank when you make that money. Check it out. Hey, everyone. Welcome to another great episode of the Sales Evangelist Podcast. I'm your host, Donald C. Kelly, the Sales Evangelist. And I'm so excited for another great episode. I'm so excited to be here with you today. And on this episode, we have the one and only Wendy Weiss. Wendy is known as the queen of cold calling. She runs an organization that you must check out. You can find it on LinkedIn. It's called Salesology. And she also has a lot of content around this. She speaks with sales leaders on her podcast. And yours truly is going on her podcast, and we have a link down below. But she's talking to me today specifically about cold calling and about what are some of the things that hold people back and how we can break through that. There are 3 things that she emphasized on this episode. And as you go throughout the content, you hear those points and how they can apply to us when it comes to us initiating and being effective at cold calling. If this is your first time listening to our show, I encourage you to please download and subscribe, because what's going to happen, we're going to notify you every single time we have an amazing piece of content, and that is weekly, twice a week, Mondays and Fridays, baby. And if you want to get more content, check out our email. You can check me out on LinkedIn, as well as go to our website, thesalesevangelist.com, and check out our email list. As we dive in, listen to how Wendy shares about her experience with dancing and how that has impacted the way that she sells. And you'll see how this applies tremendously with every point she shares and how this can apply to each and every one of us. Let me go get my tutus and get ready. Wendy, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me to be here.
I'm really looking forward to this conversation. It's one that I love talking about because it's a concept that works. Some know how to do it, some don't do it right, and some people have thrived with it and continue to thrive with it. And this is the idea of cold calling. And I bragged about you a little bit in the teaser, but talk to us a little bit more. You're the queen of cold calling. Talk to us about that, Wendy.
Oh, absolutely. I'll share with our listeners, I was never supposed to be the queen of cold calling or a sales trainer. I was supposed to be a ballerina. And I got into my current field because I needed a day job in between my dance gigs. And lucky for me, I got a job with a telemarketing agency that did B2B business development. And lucky for me, they taught me this skill set, which was completely transformational because a number of years later, it enabled me to build and grow a business. So, today my company, Salesology, we work with business owners, sales professionals, people that need to build a pipeline and grow sales, and we teach them how to do that faster, more easily, and more profitably.
It's amazing. I'm fascinated with the fact that you stuck with it as a ballerina. What was it about it that made you say, I'm going to stay with this? Because again, you're a whole nother world here. What was it? A money? Was it the fact that you found it was successful, or just like the craft, or what is it?
What made me stick with
sales?
Cold calling? Is that the question?
Yeah, stick with sales. From a ballerina to sales, like night and day.
Night and day, that is true, although I do believe everything I know in life and business I learned in ballet class. The life of a ballet dancer, the career of a ballet dancer, is quite short. And I kind of danced till I couldn't walk, at which point it was time for me to do something else. And I looked around and I said, well, what do I know how to do that people will pay me for? And I realized I knew how to cold call. And I sat down, actually, I wrote my first book, Cold Calling for Women. It had a big pink phone on the cover. I wrote that it came out in 2000. And I launched my business then.
Amazing. So it's this a lot of the similarities in between both of those worlds, like you said, like I don't know those similarities, but you share that everything you've learned in life come from ballet. What was it about that impacted sales? What did you take from ballet that helped you as a sales professional?
Thank you for asking that. The model, what I learned in ballet class, the model that I still use today in working with clients is what I learned in ballet class. The first thing I learned in ballet class, the first thing you do before a class, a performance, a rehearsal, is you have to warm up because you do not want to have a career-ending injury. We're going to have the Olympics this summer. Those athletes are not just running out on the field and playing the game. They warm up so they don't have a career-ending injury. There are things as a sales professional that you need to have in place. If you want to hire a team, you need to have things in place for them so that they don't hurt themselves, you don't hurt yourself, you don't hurt your bottom line.
Yeah.
Step 1, warm up. Mm-hmm. Step 2, if you're a dancer, you have a concert coming up, you don't just run out on stage and start dancing. You've been rehearsing for months. The great Russian ballerina Anna Pavlova said, "Nobody arrives from talent alone. Work transforms talent into genius." So what I learned in ballet class is you practice, you rehearse, you do the same thing over and over and over again. Ballet dancers, we take class every single day, 5 or 6 days a week. And we keep doing the same thing over and over and over again till you get the muscle memory. You don't have to think about it. You can just do it. It's the same in sales. You need the muscle memory. Step 3, because first we warm up, then we rehearse. Step 3, then and only then is it time to perform. Mm. The problem is most people they just skip step number 1 and step number 2, which is why step number 3 does not work for them. And I will take it one step further for all of our listeners that are really uncomfortable or scared picking up the phone and talking to people you don't know. To me, that's a lot like stage fright.
Yeah.
And I have been there. You're waiting in the wings, you're waiting for your cue, and you think you're going to throw up. That's how nervous you are. But you hear your music and you get out on stage and you dance. Well, what enables you to do that when you're so scared? You've warmed up, you are prepared, you've rehearsed, you have muscle memory. That's what enables performance. And in all the years that I've been doing this, with all the people that I've worked with over all these years, what I've seen is for most people, once they learn a very simple system and they know what they're doing every step along the path, and they have practiced, so they have muscle memory, a lot of that fear goes away.
Yeah. So when it comes to cold calling, in my head, I would understand or think that the warm-up phase probably was similar to the rehearsal phase. But distinguish that for me as a sales professional. What are some things that I can do to warm up? And then what might I do in rehearsal?
Sure. And they really are two separate stages, because step 1, warm up. What's your target? You have to define that really clearly. And I find in working with my clients, and maybe you see this as well, Donald, I say, okay, define an ideal prospect for you in your market with your offering. And they'll say things like, oh, any company that has 10 to 50,000 employees. And I was like, no, we need to narrow that down a little bit. Because this is just like real life, what you say has to be relevant to the person you say it to. Mm-hmm. So we want to have a very narrowly focused target. Employee count, maybe it's industry, maybe we need a specific geographic location. Certainly, what is the title of the person that's going to hire you?
Yeah.
All of those things. And then you need to create your script. What are you going to say? How are you going to introduce yourself? To me, it's always been funny. A lot of people that teach this skill focus on rebuttals, which is important. You do need to know what to say when prospects say they're working with someone or they're busy. But to me, the best way to handle an objection is not to hear it in the first place, which means you need to have a really good introduction. So let's create the messaging that we think is going to resonate, and we take our clients through a process to do this that includes interviewing existing clients, and also, what is the process you're going to follow? You know, how many times are you going to reach out? Like phone calls, emails, texts. Are you reaching out on social media? Like, what are the steps along the path?
Yeah.
Because it needs to be trackable, so that way you know if it's working. You know how you're doing. You can fix it if it's not working. So that's your warm-up. Set all that stuff up first, and if you have a sales team, set it up for them.
And you know, one of the parts that I get, when we go back to what you're sharing, like how often people will skip that step and then we'll go into rehearsal step, but they skip those 2 steps because it is so, you know, it may be, I'll tell you what I felt. At one point I was like, I know this stuff. I know what I'm doing. I got this. I know how to talk to people. And then I go flat on my face because yeah, you know, maybe people can buy your product. It doesn't necessarily mean the people that you are going for are the right ones. And it's important that you have that warm up. And then also the measurement. Oh my goodness. Like, I love that when you know, bringing it up, like, what am I actually trying to achieve? And if I can't measure it, then it's hard for me to be able to improve or to say, well, this part wasn't so great. I can improve and do better on the next one. So anyways, I just thought those were 2 fascinating points from that standpoint, and which, you know, obviously rolls right into the rehearsal, which I'm pretty sure I understand what this one is.
Yeah. Once you've figured out your script,
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people, like, they don't like the word script. They think they can't use a script. You know, I would argue that all salespeople use scripts, and this is what I mean. You've got an elevator speech. You're saying it over and over and over again. That's a script, whether or not you've written it down. So you want to practice. You want to, one of the problems with scripting is you don't want to sound like the marketing department wrote it. We're the biggest, and we're the best, and we're the brightest, and we're the market leader. Like, you don't want to do that. You want to sound like you're self-talking.
Yeah.
And that can be hard to achieve, so it's a combination of what's the message and then practicing it. In addition, this is pretty predictable. If you get a prospect on the phone, if they do not immediately say yes to an appointment, and let me give you my definition of the word appointment, the prospect agrees to have an in-depth conversation with you. Wherever that might happen, on the phone, on a Zoom call, you get in your car and you go see them, they agree to talk to you. That's an appointment. And when you ask, there's really only a handful of things. If they don't say yes, they're going to say they're working with someone, they're busy, send me some information, we're not doing anything right now, or maybe they say I'm not interested, in which case you need to work on your script or your targeting.
Yeah.
So it's crazy not to be prepared for these things that we know prospects are going to say.
Yeah. And this is an interesting part. And it goes back to what you were talking about with the objections, coming up. I find that when I was focusing on the objection alone, I'm focusing on the negative outcome that can come from that, and I'm waiting for an opportunity. And I found that I was getting too confrontational, if that makes sense. Even though I wasn't arguing, but I just had this confrontational idea. But when you're sharing makes so much more sense. If I understand the prospect, if I understand what they're interested in and what are some of the challenges, I can negate those objections before they become objection. And if I can practice that, it makes it so much more of a natural conversation rather than, focusing only on they're going to say they're not interested and get all bent on
what do I do?
And then start complaining about something. The product doesn't work. It's the marketing department fault or whatever. But yeah.
Well, I will share with you a story from my dancing days when I got that very first day job all those years ago, I was in my early 20s. Didn't know anything about business. I was a dancer. That was all I knew, but I needed this day job. They trained me. They gave me this script. And I was calling business owners, presidents, CEOs. I pretty quickly became one of their top people. And I knew nothing. You know, they were all older than me. They were mostly men. I didn't know anything about business. But I was a dancer. And I felt, well, I'm an artist. So all these people, they're going to want to talk to me because I'm an artist. Now, did that have anything at all to do with reality? No. But that was just the way I thought about it. And dancers, we're trained to follow direction. We follow direction really well.
Yeah.
So they gave me the script and they said, this is what you do and this is what you say. And if I got an objection, I just followed their process. And then I would kind of start over because I figured they must not have understood, because of course they wanted to talk to me and set up an appointment. And I fairly quickly became one of their top people. And it was kind of crazy because I was like 22 and knew nothing about business.
And I think that part even makes it that much more exciting, right? You didn't come with these industry, head trash, so to speak, like saying, well, this is the way that I did it. And this is how my last company did outreach. It was more of, this is a system, this is a process, follow it. And the belief that they do want to talk to me. And I think that probably made you, like, I get the sense, from what you're explaining it, like, it made you, it wasn't a rejection per se. It was more of, they want to talk to me. Why would you not want to talk to me? And that mindset was so much more different. You probably didn't go into this desperate attempt. When they did say something, you weren't like, whoa, we can give you a discount, or we're cheaper than product company A. Like, I felt like if I were to listen on those calls, you probably was calm as a cucumber and just made them, just converse, just had a conversation. Am I off on that?
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. And I'll share with you, Donald, and all of our listeners, when I first started my business, when I first started training people, and they would talk to me about this fear of rejection, I had absolutely no idea what they were talking about, because I have been to dance auditions. Mm-hmm. And when you go to a dance audition, they don't even let you dance. They just look at you and tell you to leave.
My
because
goodness.
They're looking for somebody taller or shorter, or got to fit the costume, So it took me, I got that people were really scared, but I internally did not understand it.
It wasn't in your vocabulary.
No,
it was, it's a part of life. This is what we do. You're going to make this happen. If I'm in a situation though, where I'm contemplating, or I'm looking at and trying to think that I want to do better practice, so to speak. What are some things that I can do? Or if I'm a sales leader listening to this, what can I do to help my team better practice, so to speak?
That is a great question. What we do, we sales trainers, we love role playing, mm-hmm. Because it gets you that muscle memory. What you cannot do is let people get away with, well, I'd say something like, It's like, no, this is a real call. I am your prospect. I'm going to go ring, ring. This is Wendy Weiss. I want to hear what you're going to say exactly as you're going to say it.
Yeah.
And we do that over and over again with our clients, just so they get the muscle memory. And I make them stand up. I make them get a headset, use your arms, because real people, we use our arms, our hands when we're talking.
Yeah.
And because you do need those responses to questions and objections, we do something, it's like rapid role play, where we have a group and I will just throw out, prospect says they're not interested. What are you going to say? Give me an answer. Prospect says they're busy. What are you going to say? Give me an answer. And I just randomly pick people, so they kind of have to be on their toes.
It's so if I'm hearing this correctly as a sales leader, get them to actually do the role play, get them to get the muscle memory, but also do this activity where you're getting them to speak off the cuff with just a quick response, rapid response. And I imagine somebody doing this for like a month or two, by the time they're done, they're going to probably not only have the muscle memory, but the confidence for many of the different types of objections or different types of scenario they might fall into, or different challenges, because they're so prone to doing it.
Absolutely, and it doesn't take that long.
Yeah.
If they just, people are often scared of this, but if they just practice it, then it becomes rote. You don't have, the prospect says we're working with someone, you don't have to go, what's the answer? Because you practiced it, like you just know what to say.
Yeah.
And then it becomes easier, and then it becomes really fun, because they come back to the coaching call and go, they said they were working with someone and I made an appointment.
I love it. Well, let's talk about execution, Wendy. We are warmed up. We understand who we need to go for. We are practicing the execution. What are the biggest things that hold people back from executing properly?
Oh, man.
I know. Loaded question now.
Loaded question. Well, certainly the things that we have been talking about will keep, if they haven't done that warm-up, they haven't done the rehearsal, that will keep them from executing. They also need to have some kind of software to keep them organized. I continue to be astounded in 2024, the number of companies and people that seem to think they can do this with an Excel spreadsheet.
Oh my goodness.
That's kind of a recipe for like losing out on opportunities. It's a lot of it that keeps people from taking action is the way they're thinking about it. And that's the biggest challenge of all. But what I've seen with all the clients I've worked with over the years, they come to our coaching calls and we work with them. We do keep them accountable. I consider our program to be an implementation program, not sales training. It's implementation. And nag, push, give them a shove, hold their hand, whatever it is they need. Once they start having a little bit of success, it kind of builds.
Yeah.
And I was sharing with you before we started recording, I have a client, her name is Tammy. She just finished our program, our 6-month implementation program, at the end of June. It's now July 22nd. That was 3 weeks ago. And she sent me an email. At the end of the program, I always do a graduation call with each person, and I said to her, so Tammy, what are your goals moving forward? She's in commercial real estate, which is straight commission. She said, I want to make $25,000 every month.
Come on.
And I said, go Tammy, keep me posted. Well, I just got an email from her today, right before we started. She is on track this month. She finished last month. She finished at the end of June, 3 weeks ago. She is on track right now to make $25,000 July 2024, and she's on track to make $25,000 in August of 2024. And when she started the program, she was very uncomfortable. She was afraid that people would think she was pushy, that she was being too aggressive, that people wouldn't listen to her. And now she's making $25,000 a month. She's on track, if she keeps it up, to do $300,000.
Such an amazing thing. Oh
Yeah.
my goodness. I just want to tell her kudos. Tell her kudos for us. And if you're listening to this, congratulations.
Virtual gold star for Tammy.
Tammy's doing things. I love it. And it gets you inspired, gets you pumped. And I think as a leader, as somebody who's in this enablement, a training world, like you just get pumped when people actually do the things and they see the success, because you know it works. And I know that these principles you share with us today definitely can apply. It can help apply any of us and help us out. If one, we become, we do the warm up. Two, we come to rehearsal and rehearse like it's the real thing. And three, execute, actually do the things that we know that we're supposed to do. Magic starts to happen. Don't make excuses, just get out and do it. So love it.
And no one has ever died from cold calling.
No one ever died from cold calling.
Swear to God, nobody's ever died.
Well, Wendy, you have amazing stuff that's out there, and I know our community would love to get that and to learn from you. What's the best way for them to continue learning from you?
Thank you for asking. And actually, there are two things. First, we do have a gift for all of our listeners. It's the Salesology Sales Prospecting Toolkit. And whether you are the sales professional you're prospecting, or if you manage a team, it has tools that you can use and implement to increase prospecting results. There's a whole section on mindset. There's a prospecting ROI calculator. There is a script book. There is a challenge you can do by yourself or for your team. So that's the Sales Prospecting Toolkit, and I believe you're going to post the link with this interview.
Yeah.
And also, I invite you to listen to and download my podcast, which is Salesology Conversations with Sales Leaders, on Apple or wherever, Spotify, wherever it is you get your podcast. I'm going to be interviewing you, Donald, in just a couple of weeks. So I'm looking forward to that. We'll keep talking prospecting. That's connect with me on LinkedIn. Our website is gosalesology.com, and pick up the phone and talk to people.
I love it. Pick it up. It ain't gonna hurt you. Wendy, thank you so much for having us, for coming on the show. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us. We're so excited to continue to learn from you.
Thank you so much for having me, Donald.
Anytime. Hey, that was the one and only Wendy Weiss. Thank you so much, Wendy, for coming on the show. Check out her podcast. There's a link in the show notes, as well as the gift that she's going to give us that she gave us for you and for your community and for all of your team to check out. You can find it down below. The link's there. Wendy, appreciate you coming on the show today. Connect with her again on LinkedIn. As always, we want you to thrive and want you to succeed. And this is why we have our programs, our LinkedIn Sales Prospecting course and our TSC Sales Mastermind. We'd love to have you check them out. You can find more information in the show notes or go to thesalesevangelist.com/LinkedIn or thesalesevangelist.com/mastermind. Now, as you apply these things, you will see result. But the critical component, whether it's the content from the episode or the trainings that we offer, you got to apply them, and you must in order to see the results that you need. I want you to thrive. I want you to succeed. I want you to raise your level of thinking. I want you to check out the amazing stuff from our sponsors. I want you to do big things. Thank you so much. See you on the next one.